Welcome to the special edition Ultimate Sports Podcast, draft style. I'm going to go through my top 300 big board, finally going to release it, give out player comparisons for my top 50, and best fits for the top, let's say, 100 or 150. And then I'm going to do my bold draft predictions for every team and maybe a few miscellaneous and as well as some gambling plays as well. We'll start with my top 300 big board. And I'm going to go from 1 to 300. I'm going to say the player. And then I'm going to do comparison. And then best fit team-wise. And some of these teams are unrealistically in position to draft some of these players, but you never know with trades and whatnot, and what teams could potentially land. Say if a team were to trade down with somebody that has to trade up for a quarterback and whatnot, and some unexpected stuff could happen. Alright, here we go. Number 1, Nick Bosa, defensive end, Ohio State. I think he's the best player in the draft. The Cardinals would be a great fit on their edge rush along with Chandler Jones. 49ers, obviously a good fit. Raiders, they need the production to replace Khalil Mack. The Jets need an edge rusher. That would be a nice fit. Tampa Bay, even though they have a lot of edge rushers per se, but nobody as good as Nick Bosa. The Giants need a pass rush. I think the Jaguars are a team that has enough. Obviously, Detroit wants pass rush. That would be a solid fit. And my comparison for Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett. I know a lot of people were probably going to say Joey Bosa. That's just too obvious because that's his brother and they went to the same school. So my comparison, I'm going to change it up a little bit, is Myles Garrett because I can see him having a similar impact as Myles Garrett did his rookie season with the Cleveland Browns. 2, Quinnen Williams, defensive tackle, Alabama. I see him like Aaron Donald. Somebody can just dominate the interior. I think the Jets would be a tremendous fit. The Raiders. Cardinals at 1 even, but I don't see them going there. 49ers would be a solid fit, but I think they like Bosa better, assuming Arizona takes Kyler Murray. The Giants, I don't see him falling that far. There's been some talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars flirting with interior defensive linemen. Detroit would love him if he fell that far. But I don't see him going super duper far. If anything, maybe he drops to 3. Or maybe somebody trades up for a quarterback to 3 and he falls to 4 to Oakland. 3, Josh Allen, outside linebacker, Kentucky. There's a lot of teams that want somebody of his caliber. I think anybody in the top 5 would be a good fit. The Giants would be a solid fit. Even Jacksonville can use some edge rushers that are versatile like Allen. Detroit would love him if they got an opportunity to move up. I can see Denver liking somebody like Josh Allen, but I just can't see them going in that direction or them trading up or whatever. And then Buffalo at 9, I don't see Allen falling that far either. Unless if so many people move up for quarterbacks in the top 10, then there's like the 0.1 chance of that. My comparison for him is Khalil Mack. Number 4, I have Dwayne Haskins, quarterback, Ohio State. My comp for him is Deshaun Watson. He reminds me a lot of Watson from before Watson tore his ACL. He might have a higher ceiling than Deshaun. I just think that Deshaun is going to be a couple years before he reaches his potential. I think that ACL injury really set him back. But I think Haskins is going to come in and make an immediate impact. I really think the Giants are the best fit for Dwayne Haskins. And by the way, Bosa's best fit's 49ers. Quinnen Williams best fit Jets. Josh Allen best fit Raiders. Dwayne Haskins best fit Giants. Although I can see the Redskins moving up to get him. I saw a surprise mock pick of Denver selecting him. Maybe Cincinnati or Miami of interest. 5, I have Kyler Murray, the quarterback from Oklahoma, the projected number 1 overall pick. He reminds me of Cam Newton. And I think the perfect fit for Kyler is Arizona because of his connection to Cliff Kingsbury. Obviously, Oakland has some ties to him too. John Gruden loves him. The Giants would be interesting with him and Saquon Barkley. Obviously, the Dolphins would be interesting. Even the Redskins, for that matter. 6, I have Devin White, the inside linebacker from LSU. He reminds me a lot of Miles Jack of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the best fit for White is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because of the need there. I think the Raiders are in play for White. I think that Denver's in play if he drops. I think even Cincinnati's in play. 7, Jonah Williams, offensive tackle, Alabama. He reminds me a lot of David Bakhtiari of the Green Bay Packers. The best fit for Jonah Williams, in my mind, is the Buffalo Bills because Josh Allen is somebody that needs protection. And he also has a running game that he would need protection for as well because of his mobility. If he drops, I could see Carolina, Atlanta, the Giants, even at 17 if they were to stay there. So there's some interesting options. Maybe Miami at 13, Denver, Cincinnati, even Green Bay at 12 I wouldn't rule out. Number 8, I've Ed Oliver, the defensive tackle from Houston. He reminds me a little bit of Dominique Easley. I've heard Aaron Donald compared to him. No way. He's not Aaron Donald. I think he's Dominique Easley, who is okay. He's not bad. And I like Ed Oliver, too. And I think the best fit for Oliver is the Detroit Lions at 8. I just think that he would be a good stopgap for when teams are trying to run on them. And he's someone that I could see fitting well in Matt Patricia's defense. Jacksonville would be interesting. Won't be surprised if the Jets trade down and take him. I won't be surprised if the Giants take him. The Raiders are a hot candidate at number 4 for him. Wouldn't rule out the Bucs at 5. And if he drops out of the top 10, I wouldn't rule out Cincinnati, Green Bay, or even Miami. And heck, I wouldn't rule out if he fell to 14. If he goes past 14, color me surprised. 9, Greeny Williams, cornerback, LSU. Williams is somebody that draft stock is dropping for some weird reason. I like Williams. I think he's a fine player. He reminds me of Stephon Gilmore. His best fits, Detroit. I think the best fit for him would be the Oakland Raiders if he's still there at 21. Pittsburgh would be a good fit. I could see Carolina taking a chance at 16 because they normally would go off the grind sometimes. If the Giants choose to go secondary with their 17th overall pick, maybe. Number 10, I have Christian Wilkins, the defensive tackle from Clemson. He reminds me a lot of Linval Joseph of the Minnesota Vikings. I think the best fit team-wise for Christian Wilkins is the Atlanta Falcons. I think there's a chance he goes there. I could see Miami taking him at 13. I could see him going higher than expected. I have him as the 10th rated best player. So I won't be floored if he went, let's say, 6 to the Giants or 7 to the Jaguars or 8 to the Lions or heck, even 9 to the Bills if the Bills choose to go defense. Wouldn't even rule out Denver. And if he falls past the Falcons at 14, maybe if the Redskins decide to pass on a quarterback and say they trade for Josh Rosen, I could see him in play there. Carolina would love for him to fall to 7 or 16. The Giants, if, let's say, he falls to 17 and the Giants take a quarterback at 6, maybe they can go there with Wilkins. So, Wilkins got some options. Number 11, I have TJ Hockenson, the tight end from Iowa. He reminds me a lot of Rob Gronkowski. I think the best fit for Hockenson is the Jacksonville Jaguars because they need somebody to catch the ball, and they have a lot of average or below average offensive weapons outside of Leonard Fournette, and he would just give Nick Foles more security, and then even in the blocking game as well. There's been some chatter of him going as high as 6 to the Giants, but I don't see it. 8 to the Lions, I think, would be interesting. I think Buffalo would be a good fit with Josh Allen. Wouldn't rule out Denver at 10. Green Bay at 12 is probably the most likely destination for Hockenson because they need more skill guys around Aaron Rodgers. But I can't see him falling past 12. I'd be very surprised if he did. And if he fell to, like, say, 19 to Tennessee, or if Tennessee traded up for him, wow. 12. I have Clelin Ferrell, the defensive end from Clemson. He reminds me a lot of Chandler Jones of the Arizona Cardinals. I think Ferrell goes in the teens. I could see him going as high as 13 to the Miami Dolphins. I think Atlanta's in play at 14. Washington's a dark horse at 15. I could see him being a Panther. I could see the Giants taking him at 17. 19, Tennessee's very likely in my mind, and if he falls past there, somebody's getting a steal in my mind. 13, I have Rashawn Gary, the defensive end from Michigan. He reminds me a lot of Ezekiel Ansah, formerly of the Detroit Lions. Let's just assume that he doesn't resign there. Gary, I think, is solid, but was supposed to be better than this. And among fits, I could see him going in the top 5. Like, wouldn't rule him out going to Tampa Bay. The Giants like him. I know Detroit would be interesting. Jacksonville doesn't really need edge rushers per se. And although I do think they're in play for like the linebacker types, but I just don't see them drafting just a strictly defensive end like Gary. I think Denver can have him at 10 if they choose to go that route. Buffalo's in play. They have some needs on the D-line in terms of depth. I think the Dolphins at 13 are a possibility for him. Redskins, maybe he slips to 17 and that's where the Giants take him and say he would go there and they take a quarterback at 6. If he fell to the Titans at 19, they'd be doing cartwheels. 14, Devin Bush, inside linebacker, Michigan. He reminds me of Jalen Smith of the Dallas Cowboys. He would be a nice fit in Cincinnati, replacing the recently departed Vontaze Burfict, and I think that's his best fit. I think Denver would be a good fit. Green Bay, if he were to go past Cincinnati. I don't see Miami going linebacker route. Or the Falcons. Maybe Washington if they don't take a quarterback and trade for Josh Rosen. I can see Carolina going this way if necessary. And if he falls to 20, Pittsburgh's going to be doing lap dances. 15, Juwan Taylor, the offensive tackle from Florida. He reminds me a lot of Trent Williams of the Washington Redskins. I think that the best fit for Taylor is the Miami Dolphins. He'd be somebody that can come in and start opposite of Laramie Tunsil on that offensive line. A lot of people think he'll be the first lineman off the board, as do I, but I just think Jonah Williams is the better prospect. And I think Atlanta would be a good fit. Obviously, Jacksonville's being talked about as a destination. I obviously wouldn't rule out the Bills. If Jacksonville were to say go with the tight end, Detroit goes pass rush, and then the Bills would go with Taylor. If you were to follow them at 9, I wouldn't be surprised about that. And I also wouldn't rule out the Lions for either Williams or Taylor either. 16, I have Montez Sweat, the defensive end from Mississippi State. He's somebody that is likely to drop out of the first round because of the misdiagnosis of his heart condition. He reminds me a lot of Danielle Hunter of the Minnesota Vikings. I think Sweat would be a good fit with the Lions. I think the Dolphins would be good. Falcons, Giants, Redskins. Maybe somebody like Tennessee if he were to interest them. And I think Sweat's best fit would be who would fit best with Montez Sweat? I would like to see him on the Packers. I think that'd be a great fit. They need some help on the edge rush after addressing a lot of their secondary in the offseason. 17, I have Byron Murphy, the cornerback from Washington, who reminds me a little bit of Casey Hayward of the Chargers. The best fit for Murphy, in my mind, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wouldn't rule out the Raiders, wouldn't rule out the Giants at 17. Tennessee would be a good spot for Murphy. Maybe the Eagles, if he drops that far at 25. Seattle needs secondary help. Also wouldn't rule out Houston, who needs help in the secondary as well. The Chiefs don't have a first-round pick anymore, or else he would have been in play for them at 29 if they didn't trade that pick a part of the Frank Clark package. 18, I have Dexter Lawrence, the defensive tackle of Clemson. He reminds me a lot of Fletcher Cox of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Eagles are a team that would be a good fit for him. Seattle would be a good fit. The Colts. If he were to fall to the Giants in the second round, I think he'd be a good fit there. He could be a good fit with the Raiders, in my mind, if they decide to go with Devin White at Ford and do pass rush later in the first round. He'd be a good fit with the Chargers. I think Green Bay would be a good fit if they go with the tight end Hockenson in the first round. Next, I have Josh Adams, the running back of Alabama. A lot of people aren't high on this guy. I am. He reminds me a lot of Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints. The best fit for Adams is the Oakland Raiders because they need more versatile offensive players to surround Derek Carr with. And he's somebody that can catch passes out of the backfield and will have a lot of carries as well. Some other interesting fits. I know Philly was thrown out, but they addressed their running back need with Jordan Howard. I think another interesting fit would be Pittsburgh and see if they would have a good duo of Josh Adams and James Conner. That would be interesting. Another interesting thing would be the Rams if they decide to give Todd Gurley some insurance. The Patriots are loaded at the running back position after drafting Sony Michel last year, so I don't see them going in that direction. Next up, I have Jeffrey Simmons, the defensive tackle of Mississippi State. He reminds me, when healthy, of Ndamukong Suh. So somebody might be getting a steal with him if he lives up to potential. Let's say if he drops out of the top 20, which I think is realistic. I think the Eagles, the Colts, the Chargers are great fits. And I think the Rams are actually the best fit for Jeffrey Simmons. 21, Jerry Tillery, the defensive tackle of Notre Dame. He reminds me of Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs. The best fit for Tillery, in my mind, is the Indianapolis Colts, who can use some interior help and add to their young core that they have going there. I think the Chargers would be a good fit. Philly, Rams, Patriots, even if they decide to go that route. 22, I have Noah Fant, the tight end of Iowa. He reminds me of Tampa Bay Buccaneer O.J. Howard. The best fit for Noah Fant, in my mind, would be the Tennessee Titans because Delaney Walker isn't getting any younger, and Marcus Mariota needs some young blood surrounded around him in order for him to succeed in moving forward. Other fits would be Green Bay if they decide to go Fant at 30 and defense at 12. Another one I could see is I talked about Tennessee, Oakland. And another one potentially Pittsburgh, maybe Seattle. And obviously New England has to replace Rob Gronkowski, although they did just bring in Austin Seferian-Jenkins. But they can use a double threat tight end thing like Belichick used to have with Gronk and the late Aaron Hernandez. 23, I have Deontay Thompson, the safety of Alabama. I think he's one of the more underrated players in the draft. I don't think he'll go in the first round. I think teams are a little down on him for some reason. He reminds me a little bit of Tashawn Gibson. I think Seattle would be the best fit for Thompson, although Philly would be a good fit. Indy, Green Bay, New England, the Giants, because they need some help to replace Landon Collins, although they did acquire Jabril Peppers in the Odell Beckham Jr. trade. but I think they need more help in the secondary there. Number 24, I have DeAndre Baker, the cornerback of Georgia. He reminds me of Tre'Davious White of the Buffalo Bills. I believe he should be a first-round pick tonight. I think the best fit for Baker is the Philadelphia Eagles, who need help in the secondary. I thought the Chiefs were his best fit, and then he got traded away. But I just think Philly's a better fit as of right now, obviously because the Chiefs don't have a first-round pick. Seattle would be a good fit. Pittsburgh, New England, Giants. 25, I have Brian Burns, the defensive end from Florida State, who reminds me of Aldon Smith. I think the best fit for Burns would be the Carolina Panthers, who need some help on the edge rush. I think that another good fit for Burns would be the Tennessee Titans. I think the Giants are a good fit at 17. Another good fit for Burns would be the Lions at 8 if they decide to go that high or trade back. Number 26, I have Taylor Rapp, the safety from Washington. I don't think he'll go in the first round. He reminds me of Bubba Baker. I think the Chiefs are the best fit for Rapp, but I'm unsure if they have a second rounder or not. If they do, maybe they trade up for Rapp. This is a win-now team, and I think Rapp would fit perfectly into what Steve Spagnuolo wants to do with Kansas City. Another good fit for Rapp would be the Oakland Raiders, who need some secondary help. Green Bay, Indy, maybe the Chargers. They pair somebody up with Derwin James. Number 27, I have Cody Ford, the offensive lineman from Oklahoma. He reminds me of Kelechi Osemele of the Raiders. Or, I'm sorry, of the Jets. I forgot he moved on from the Raiders. The Minnesota Vikings, I think, are the best fit for Cody Ford, but I don't think they'll go in that direction because I think they have somebody else in mind in that spot. Houston's obviously a good fit. Rams, Eagles, if they decide to go offensive line. And maybe the Giants if Ford drops to the second round. 28, I have N'Keal Harry, the wide receiver from Arizona State. I think this guy's the most talented receiver in the draft and is somebody that can contribute right away, similar to Calvin Ridley last year. He reminds me of Marquez Colston. And Colston is someone who thrived with Drew Brees. I think Harry could thrive whether it's with a mediocre quarterback or a good quarterback. I really am high on this kid. He has a lot of potential. I think his best fit is a team that pretty much needs a wide receiver now that they traded its best wide receiver, and that's the New York Giants, who obviously got rid of Odell Beckham Jr., and they need somebody to replace him, and maybe they go there with their second round pick, assuming that they still have one. Or another team I could see him play is the Cardinals with their second rounder. I could see them taking N'Keal Harry, and he's a local kid too, so it would make sense. Patriots make sense. A team like the Colts makes a lot of sense. And maybe the Chiefs if they're not confident that Tyreek Hill will be playing because of a possible pending suspension. 29, I have another wide receiver, DK Metcalf of Ole Miss. He reminds me of Demaryius Thomas of the Patriots. Can't believe I'm saying that. Metcalf's best fit's the Ravens. He's a deep threat that would really, really help Lamar Jackson. Obviously, Harry would be a good fit with the Ravens, too. Metcalf would fit well, obviously, on the Ravens. I'd see the Giants as a good fit. The Jets with Sam Darnold would be a good fit for both Harry and Metcalf. Maybe the Redskins with whoever their quarterback is. 30, I have Jonathan Abram, the safety of Mississippi State. He reminds me of Rashad Jones of the Miami Dolphins. I think he'd be a great fit with the Colts, the Eagles, the Seahawks. I think the Packers are his best fit. I'd like him to play with Adrian Amos in that secondary. 31, I have Garrett Bradbury, the setter from North Carolina State. He reminds me of Jason Kelsey. I think his best fit's the Rams. But I won't be surprised if somebody leapfrogs them and takes them, like the Vikings or the Texans. Maybe the Chargers, Eagles. 32, Dalton Risner, the offensive tackle of Kansas State. He reminds me of Brian Bulaga. Best fit, Houston Texans. They need some bodies on that offensive line to protect Deshaun Watson. Obviously, the Panthers are a team I could see taking Risner. Maybe the Falcons reach for him at 14. I could also see the Rams taking Risner. I could see the Giants with their second-round pick if he's still there. Maybe the Jets if they trade back. There's some interesting fits there. 33, Andre Dillard, offensive tackle, Washington State. He reminds me a lot of Terron Armstead of the Saints. I think Dillard's best fit is the Carolina Panthers. He'd provide really good protection for Cam Newton. He's the best passing, blocking lineman in the draft, I think. And there's a lot of interesting fits. Obviously, the Vikings and the Falcons and the Texans among them. Greg Little, the offensive tackle of Ole Miss. He reminds me of Seattle's Dwayne Brown. I think Little would be the best fit on the Los Angeles Chargers, who need some youth on that offensive line. Other fits would be the Giants, the Rams, the Seahawks, if they decide to go that route, potentially. I can see the Falcons maybe reaching here. You just never know with the draft sometimes. 35, I have Drew Lock, the quarterback of Missouri. He reminds me of Matthew Stafford. Best fit, the Denver Broncos. They need somebody that has a good arm, and I think John Elway likes Lock. Other fits would be Redskins, Giants, and maybe a sleeper here in the Chargers if they decide to draft Phil Rivers' successor. 36, I have Deebo Samuel, the wide receiver from South Carolina. He reminds me of Devontae Adams. I think the best fit for Samuel would be I'm going to say the Raiders. I could see him being a Raider and playing with Antonio Brown there in Oakland. Obviously, the other wide receiver needy teams I mentioned, I think will be in play too. A.J. Brown, wide receiver, Ole Miss. He reminds me of Juju Smith-Schuster. Best fit for A.J. Brown. I could see him fitting very well in Green Bay. Alongside Devontae Adams. That would be a pretty good fit. Jachai Polite, the defensive end from Florida. He reminds me a little bit of Derek Morgan. Polite is someone that I thought had a chance to be a first rounder, who I think is going to slip to maybe the third round. He'd be a really good fit on the Seahawks. I think he'd fit well on Miami. I think the Giants would be a good fit. I think the best fit for Polite, in my mind, though, I would really like to see him on a team like, let's go with I wouldn't mind seeing him on the Chiefs as like a young depth piece, but I just don't see him going that far. 39, Yodny Kajusti, the offensive tackle of West Virginia. He reminds me a little bit of Taylor Lewan, maybe a poor man's version. I think Kajusti would fit well in Philadelphia because that offensive line is aging a little bit. Teams I could see and play for him are like the Chargers, the Vikings, somebody like that. 40, Chris Lindstrom, the guard from Boston College. Everybody thinks that this is a very Vikings candidate. But Lindstrom would fit really nice on not only on the Vikings, but the Rams. I think he'd fit great on the Chargers. I think he'd fit well on the Chiefs. I think the Giants, if they decide to add some more depth to that guard position, but I doubt they'd go that route. The Jets, I think, would be a great fit. 41, Mack Wilson, the inside linebacker from Alabama. He reminds me of C.J. Mosley. This is a Packer in my mind. I think it'd be just a great fit, getting some youth with the linebacker position. 42, Draymond Jones, the defensive end from Ohio State. I can also see him being a Green Bay Packer. I think that would be a really good fit. And by the way, a good Lindstrom team, I think his best fit would be a team like the Chicago Bears, who can use some depth on that offensive line. But best fit for both Wilson and Draymond Jones, I think, is the Packers. And Kawan Short is somebody that Draymond Jones reminds me of. 43, Justin Lane, the cornerback of Michigan State. I think the best fit for Lane would be a team that needs some secondary help, like the Houston Texans. So, I think that's their best fit for Lane, and then Marlon Humphrey is somebody that he reminds me of. Irv Smith Jr., the tight end of Alabama, he reminds me of Trey Burton. I think he'd be a really good fit on the Ravens, a team that obviously needs weapons around Lamar Jackson. Maybe, I know they have a young tight end on their team, but I could see them doing like a multiple tight end type of thing and use Smith Jr. as a bit of a fullback tight end, like how the Bears used Trey Burton. 45, Hakeem Butler, wide receiver, Iowa State. He reminds me a lot of former Giants wideout Plexico Burress. I think Butler would fit well on a lot of teams. I think he'd fit well on Dallas as like a third option for Dak Prescott. I think that the Rams would be a good depth player for them. Maybe the Patriots. 46, Miles Sanders, running back, Penn State. He reminds me of current Patriots Sony Michel. A team that would be a good fit for Sanders, I think, would be the Rams, because I threw them out as an option, as like they need somebody to go with Todd Gurley unless they decide to bring back C.J. Anderson. 47, Kelvin Hamron, the wide out from NC State. Reminds me of Kenny Golladay. That's the type of receiver the Dallas Cowboys need. I think that's the best fit for Harmon. Marquise Brown, the wideout from Oklahoma. He reminds me of Santonio Holmes. I think his best fit would be the New England Patriots. 49, Zach Allen, defensive end, Boston College. He reminds me of Cam Hayward. I think Zach Allen would fit really nice on the Pittsburgh Steelers, ironically enough. 50, Trayvon Mullen, cornerback, Clemson. He reminds me of Kevin Johnson of the Texans, and I think the Texans are a good fit for Mullen as well. But the best fit, I think the Colts can use some secondary depth to go back with their cornerback situation. So I think that would be the best fit. Now I'm just going to do the rest of my draft board without saying fits and whatnot and comparisons. 51, Darnell Savage, safety, Maryland. 52, Juan Thornhill, safety, Virginia. 53, Jalen Ferguson, defensive end, Louisiana Tech. 54, David Edwards, offensive tackle, Wisconsin. 55, Will Grier, quarterback, West Virginia. 56, Riley Ridley, wide receiver, Georgia. 57, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, safety, Florida. 58, Chase Winovich, defensive end, Michigan. 59, Eric McCoy, center, Texas A&M. 60, Daniel Jones, quarterback, Duke. I'm going to give you a comparison for this one because he's going to be a first-round pick tonight. I don't think this guy is going to be a good NFL quarterback, so I'm going to say Blake Bortles as my comparison. Although people think that he's the next Eli Manning, I just don't see it. I think he's going to be a way worse pro than Eli Manning. 61, Damian Harris, running back, Alabama. 62, Nasir Adderley, safety, Delaware State. 63, Rock Ya-Sin, cornerback, Temple. There's been buzz about him going in the first round. 64, Miles Boykin, wide receiver, Notre Dame. 65, Ryan Finley, quarterback, NC State. 66, Willie Snead V, wide receiver, West Virginia. 67, Caleb McGarry, offensive tackle, Washington. 68, Paris Campbell, wide receiver, Ohio State. 69, Will Harris, safety, Boston College. 70, Terry McLaurin, wide receiver, Ohio State. 71, Mecole Hardman, wide receiver, Georgia. 72, Titus Howard, offensive tackle, Alabama State. 73, Charles Omenihu, defensive end, Texas. 74, Amani Hooker, safety, Iowa. 75, Lonnie Johnson, cornerback, Kentucky. 76, David Long, cornerback, Michigan. 77, Julian Love, cornerback, Notre Dame. 78, Tyler Romer, offensive tackle, San Diego State. 79, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, wide receiver, Stanford. 80, Amani Arari, cornerback, Penn State. 81, Joe Jackson, defensive end, Miami. 82, David Montgomery, running back, Iowa State. 83, Devin Singletary, running back, FAU. 84, Jace Sternberger, tight end, Texas A&M. 85, Joejuan Williams, cornerback, Vanderbilt. 86, Dawson Knox, tight end, Ole Miss. 87, Connor McGovern, center, Penn State. 88, Elton Jenkins, guard, Mississippi State. 89, Trayvon Williams, running back, Texas A&M. 90, Josh Oliver, tight end, San Jose State. 91, Michael Jackson, cornerback, Miami. 92, Kale Waring, tight end, San Diego State. 93, Justin Hollins, defensive end, Oregon. 94, L.J. Scott, running back, Michigan State. 95, Tristan Hill, defensive tackle, UCF. 96, Chuma Edoja, defensive tackle, USC. 97, L.J. Collier, defensive end, TCU. 98, Ben Bangadoo, defensive end, TCU. 99, Cody Barton, linebacker, Utah. 100, Christian Miller, edge rusher, Alabama. 101, Renell Wren, defensive tackle, Arizona State. 102, Lamont Galliard, guard, Georgia. 103, Bryce Love, running back, Stanford. 104, Andy Isabella, wide receiver, Massachusetts. 105, Mike Weber, running back, Ohio State. 106, Austin Bryant, defensive end, Clemson. 107, Bobby Evans, offensive tackle, Oklahoma. 108, Caitlin Saunders, defensive tackle, Western Illinois. 109, Anthony Nelson, defensive end, Iowa. 110, Kingsley Keke, defensive end, Texas A&M. 111, Nate Davis, offensive tackle, Charlotte. 112, Ashton Doolin, wide receiver, Malone. 113, David Long, linebacker, West Virginia. 114, Bobby Okerke, linebacker, Stanford. Mitch Hyatt, offensive tackle, Clemson. That's 115. 116, Justice Hill, running back, Oklahoma State. 117, Michael Dieter, guard, Wisconsin. 118, Anthony Johnson, wide receiver, Buffalo. 119, Drew Samia, guard, Oklahoma. 120, Dax Raymond, tight end, Utah State. 121, Foster Muru, tight end, LSU. 122, Jarrett Stidham, quarterback, Auburn. 123, Dexter Williams, running back, Notre Dame. 124, Lil Jordan Humphrey, wide receiver, Texas. 125, Myles Gaskin, running back, Washington. 126, Marquise Blair, safety, Utah. 127, DeAndre Walker, defensive end, Georgia. 128, Michael Jordan, guard, Ohio State. 129, Benny Snell, running back, Kentucky. 130, Stanley Morgan, wide receiver, Nebraska. 131, Gary Jennings, wide receiver, West Virginia. 132, Ashani Zymez, defensive end, Old Dominion. 133, Gary Johnson, linebacker, Texas. 134, John Kaminsky, defensive end, Charleston. 135, Sharif Miller, defensive end, Penn State. 136, Darrell Henderson, running back, Memphis. 137, Gardner Minshew, quarterback, Washington State. 138, Drew Tranquill, linebacker, Notre Dame. 139, Jalen Jelks, defensive end, Oregon. 140, Sean Bunting, cornerback, Central Michigan. 141, Jamal Davis, defensive end, Akron. 142, Max Schapring, offensive tackle, Northern Illinois. 143, Daniel Weiss, defensive tackle, Kansas. 144, Antoine Wesley, wide receiver, Texas Tech. 145, Travis Stomer, running back, Miami. 146, Emmanuel Hall, wide receiver, Missouri. 147, Jordan Brailford, defensive end, Oklahoma State. 148, Ryan Bates, guard, Penn State. 149, Joe Giles Harris, linebacker, Duke. 150, Terry Beckner Jr., defensive tackle, Missouri. 151, Amon Marshall, cornerback, USC. 152, Elias Mack, tight end, Notre Dame. 153, Alexander Mattison, running back, Boise State. 154, Isaac Nauta, tight end, Georgia. 155, Carrie Willis, safety, Michigan State. 156, Gerald Willis, defensive tackle, Miami. 157, James Williams, running back, Washington State. 158, Tyree McCants, tight end, South Florida. 159, Evan Worthington, safety, Colorado. 160, Carl Granderson, defensive end, Wyoming. 161, Max Crosby, defensive end, Eastern Michigan. 162, Jelani Tavai, linebacker, Hawaii. 163, Kyle Phillips, defensive end, Tennessee. 164, Isaiah Johnson, cornerback, Houston. 165, Chris Boyd, cornerback, Texas. 166, Greg Gaines, defensive tackle, Washington. 167, Porter Gustin, linebacker, USC. 168, Tyree Jackson, quarterback, Buffalo. 169, Caden Smith, tight end, Stanford. 170, Caleb Wilson, tight end, UCLA. 171, Kendall Joseph, linebacker, Clemson. 172, Hunter Renfrow, wide receiver, Clemson. 173, Penny Hart, wide receiver, Georgia State. 174, Drew Sample, tight end, Washington. 175, James Dean, cornerback, Auburn. 176, Kendall Sheffield, cornerback, Ohio State. 177, Ross Pischerbacher, guard, Alabama. 178, Wyatt Ray, defensive end, Boston College. 179, Jimmy Moreland, cornerback, James Madison. 180, Montre Hartage, cornerback, Northwestern. 181, Bayo Ben-Shabel, guard, Wisconsin. 182, Travion Conley, linebacker, Notre Dame. 183, Jamal Peters, cornerback, Mississippi State. 184, Cameron Smith, linebacker, USC. 185, Brett Ripon, quarterback, Boise State. 186, Martez Ivy, offensive line, Florida. 187, Clayton Thorson, quarterback, Northwestern. 188, Divine Ozogbo, running back, Nebraska. 189, Dalen Mack, defensive end, Texas A&M. 190, Kevin Givens, defensive tackle, Penn State. 191, Mike Edwards, safety, Kentucky. 192, Johnny Dixon, wide receiver, Ohio State. 193, Tony Pillard, running back, Memphis. 194, Blake Cashman, linebacker, Minnesota. 195, Vosean Joseph, linebacker, Florida. 196, Trey Watson, linebacker, Maryland. 197, Hajate Froholt, guard, Arkansas. 198, Ben Burkervin, linebacker, Washington. 199, Nick Fitzgerald, quarterback, Mississippi State. 200, Alex Bars, guard, Notre Dame. 201, Isaiah Bruggs, tight end, Alabama. 202, Trey Lamar, linebacker, Clemson. 203, Zach Gentry, tight end, Michigan. 204, Isaiah Prince, offensive tackle, Ohio State. 205, Terrell Hanks, linebacker, New Mexico State. 206, Paul Adams, offensive tackle, Missouri. 207, Jermaine Pratt, linebacker, NC State. 208, Ugo Amadi, safety, Oregon. 209, DeMarcus Lodge, wide receiver, Ole Miss. 210, Delvin Randall, safety, Temple. 211, Malik Reed, defensive end, Nevada. 212, Jordan Scarlett, running back, Florida. 213, Alec Ingold, fullback, Washington. 214, Keyshawn Johnson, wide receiver, Fresno State. 215, Khalil Hodge, linebacker, Buffalo. 216, Tyree St. Louis, offensive tackle, Miami. 217, Terry Goodwin, wide receiver, Georgia. 218, Caden Ellis, linebacker, Idaho. 219, Marvell Tell, safety, USC. 220, Chris Slayton, defensive tackle, Syracuse. 221, PJ Johnson, defensive tackle, Arizona. 222, Jacoby Myers, wide receiver, NC State. 223, CJ Conrad, tight end, Kentucky. 224, Garrett Brumfield, offensive tackle, LSU. 225, Traven Wesco, tight end, West Virginia. 226, Trace McSorley, quarterback, Penn State. 227, Savion Smith, safety, Alabama. 228, Malik Carney, defensive end, North Carolina. 229, Mike Bell, safety, Fresno State. 230, Sutton Smith, defensive end, Northern Illinois. 231, Emmanuel Turner, defensive tackle, Louisiana Tech. 232, Nate Herbig, guard, Stanford. 233, Darius Slayton, wide receiver, Auburn. 234, BJ Autry, offensive tackle, Jacksonville State. 235, Drew Forbes, guard, Southeast Missouri State. 236, Corey Ballantyne, cornerback, Washburn. 237, Keelan Doss, wide receiver, UC Davis. 238, Cole Holcomb, linebacker, North Carolina. 239, Rodney Anderson, running back, Oklahoma. 240, Olive Sagapoulou, defensive tackle, Wisconsin. 241, Elijah Holyfield, running back, Georgia. 242, Jazz Ferguson, wide receiver, Northwestern State. 243, Andrew Wingward, safety, Wyoming. 224, Mark Fields, cornerback, Clemson. 245, Ryan Connolly, linebacker, Wisconsin. 246, Zedrick Woods, safety, Ole Miss. 247, Dontavius Russell, defensive tackle, Auburn. 248, Sheldrick Redwine, safety, Miami. 249, Tommy Sweeney, tight end, Boston College. 250, Ali Udo, offensive tackle, Olan. 251, Jalen Hurd, wide receiver, Baylor. 252, Reggie White Jr., wide receiver, Monmouth. 253, Deshaun Davis, linebacker, Auburn. 254, Keenan Brown, tight end, Texas State. 255, Sayon Taktai, linebacker, BYU. 256, Cortez Broughton, defensive tackle, Cincinnati. 257, Jonathan Ledbetter, Georgia, the defensive end. 258, Ben Powers, guard, Oklahoma. 259, Jamal Custis, wide receiver, Syracuse. 260, Hamp Cheevers, cornerback, Boston College. 261, Karan Higdon, running back, Michigan. 262, Calvin Anderson, offensive tackle, Clemson. 263, Lucas Dennis, safety, Boston College. 264, Ken Webster, cornerback, Ole Miss. 265, Raquel Armstead, running back, Temple. 266, Dennis Daly, offensive tackle, South Carolina. 267, Deontay Johnson, wide receiver, Toledo. 268, Sam Mustipher, offensive line, Notre Dame. 269, Clifton Duck, cornerback, Appalachian State. 270, Cano Dillon, tight end, Oregon. 271, Kyle Schirmer, quarterback, Vanderbilt. 272, Blace Brown, cornerback, Troy. 273, Preston Williams, wide receiver, Colorado. 274, Albisi Johnson, wide receiver, Colorado State. 275, DeMarcus Christmas, defensive end, Florida. 276, Kendall Branton, tight end, Missouri. 277, Jordan Miller, cornerback, Washington. 278, Ulysses Gilbert, linebacker, Akron. 279, Quadri Olinson, running back, Pittsburgh. 280, Greg Dortch, wide receiver, Wake Forest. 281, Chase Hansen, linebacker, Utah. 282, Marquise Copeland, defensive tackle, Cincinnati. 283, JoJo McIntosh, safety, Washington. 284, Ricky Walker, defensive tackle, Virginia Tech. 285, Cody Barton, linebacker, Utah. 286, Xavier Ubosi, wide receiver, UAB. 287, Kelvin McKnight, wide receiver, Samford. 288, Derek Roberson, outside linebacker, Sam Houston State. 289, Trey Pipkins, offensive tackle, Sioux Falls. 290, Aziz Al-Sher, linebacker, FAU. 291, Jalen Moore, running back, Appalachian State. 292, Amike Egbuli, linebacker, Houston. 293, Byron Coward, defensive end, Maryland. 294, Eric Dungy, quarterback, Syracuse. 295, Jordan Teamu, quarterback, Ole Miss. 296, Olamide Zacchaeus, wide receiver, Virginia. 297, Travis Fulgham, wide receiver, Old Dominion. 298, Darrell Johnson, defensive end, NC A&T. 299, Phil Haynes, guard, Wake Forest. And 300, Nick Allegretti, center, Illinois. That's my 300. In part 2 of this podcast, I'm going to be doing gambling picks, as well as every team's bold predictions, along with some miscellaneous predictions throughout the draft.